And who did you get that from?
That's from Anya. She's so sweet.
Nice. So basically, you bought yourself some whiskey.
Well, no, she doesn't drink alcohol. She sort of has a little bit of a rest. Good man. Precedence about drinking alcohol. So, but she's broken her own personal rules and bought me that. So that was nice of her.
Okay.
So what are you drinking?
This is called Bullet.
Bullet.
Yeah, and it's a top shelf. At least here in the restaurant area, when they want to upsell you on your whiskey, they'll recommend one of these. So
well, I feel bad about this now. Then I've been waiting all day to do this to you.
Oh no, not at all. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so hopefully this will.
So cheers and happy midwinter festival.
Happy solstice.
Yeah. Oh God, that's beautiful. Anyway.
All right. Yeah. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to have to share the screen. I think this is it. Okay, that's that. Can I do that?
Have you changed the camera, or you
yeah, I changed it. Yeah. I did.
It looks a lot better.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was trying to get different angles, and it just wasn't working out the way I wanted it to. Okay, now I got to figure out. Can you see anything right now?
Yeah, I've got full screen. Oh, yeah.
So you've got that. Okay, so now we
can see your cursor, yeah.
And now we got to make sure that we have the volume.
Yes, I can hear the volume.
Okay. All right. So I think what I'll do is I'm not going to worry about introducing anything right now. I think I'll just make an introduction on my own and then have it segue. And this might not even come out right now on my channel until it gets to this part in the sequence. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, well, let's just do this like we did the last time.
Okay.
And just stop and chat about things that we pick up along the way, and and we'll just pretend like we know as much as we know now because we talked about it already, but whatever.
Okay, we're going to set the scene that this is the chimp speaking to humans about sort of recent history.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to do that?
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, can you see me right now? Because I thought we were going to both be side by side right now.
You're above me.
Oh, I can't see anything. Why is that?
You're on the left of the screen.
Oh, there we go. I was looking. Okay, that's weird. It pulled up a whole new window for me. Okay, all right, I gotcha. Huh, interesting. So that means then I have to take this one over to. Hold on, I'm just figuring this out now. Give me a second. Is that going to work if I move it? Okay. All right, that worked. Okay. All right, so we've got the recording going, and all right. So I can't remember. Did you say you wanted to introduce this idea, or do you want me to?
Well, do you want to introduce what we're actually doing?
Well, at this point, everyone out there listening to the sultry sounds of Mark's and my voice, we are well into the dreamscape that is the movie Waking Life. And in this scene, we have a college class. I'm assuming it's a college class because the young man is in his early 20s, probably. He's in the classroom. You'll see him. I don't know if I'll maybe point him out to you, but so this is a dream sequence where either the professor is a chimp or he's maybe a class presenter. I mean, it could be he's presenting something as, a presentation for the class.
Yeah, the chimp is actually reading a script to the class as the lecture.
Yeah.
Whether he's reading his own words or
that's what made me
somebody else.
That's what made me think that it was maybe a student, because it's perhaps that. But then again, based on what we talked about before, at the very end, there's that scene, there's that little thing at the end, very end. So if it is a professor, then he's reading from a script. So he's just, I don't know. I don't know anymore that he's okay. So yeah, he's reading from a script. He's got a microphone. We've got an old school projector here, and basically he's going to be breaking down this cultural analysis. And
it's all in the past tense as well.
Okay.
So he's speaking about things that have changed or been done in the recent past.
Do you think that it has any motivation for the present?
Well, it's open to interpretation. But I think it's within the recent past that the music that is shown,
Mm-hmm.
as well as sort of the black and white imagery of what looks to be sort of a Soviet satellite state, whether it be Poland or East Germany in the 1960s or 50s.
Mm-hmm.
But press play and let's let the audience to see what we're talking about.
Okay.
Our critique began as all critiques begin, with doubt. Doubt became our narrative. Ours was a quest for a new story, our own. And we grasped toward this new history driven by the suspicion that ordinary language couldn't tell it.
So I'm going to stop there.
Yeah.
So he starts there with a man that's running away and he's from something that he's frightened of, and he's looking over his shoulder at whatever the threat is. I think that's a reference to the dream that we all have, where we're being chased by something that never actually catches us, but that is a very fearful and frustrating dream.
Yeah, it is that nightmarish kind of experience where it's silent. I don't know if you've ever had a silent dream. Have you ever had a silent dream? Like where there's no noise at all?
I can't say I've ever differentiated between noise and silence.
That's interesting because I just had an epiphany. So this is going to be a little bit of a segue, everyone, and Mark. So in my past, I grew up in a family that was divorced. And I remember as a very small child, and I would have to say I could, have to ask my mom like how old I was when we lived at this particular house, because I have certain very, very young memories of being in that house. I had an earache in this house. I remember screaming and crying because of the pain in my ear and my mom trying to comfort me. I remember taking baths, listening to Sesame Street and Bert and Ernie and Big Bird. Like I have vivid memories. The street we lived on was Magnolia, and the street was lined with magnolia trees. And then we were just a few blocks away from the hospital where I was born. So I have all of these really vivid memories of this place. But the one negative thing about that experience, I had this recurring nightmare that was noise and silence. And by that, I mean, and I wrote a poem about this or some kind of short story or whatever, but by that, I meant the silence was so deafening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just palpable. It was just compressed all around me. So basically in my dream, that was a recurring nightmare, I would be walking around the house looking for my mom and I couldn't find her. And it was nothing but just void in terms of the sound. It was just void, but I'm walking from room to room. And then there was even hues and changes. And I felt like something was angry with me. Something was mad at me. And I didn't know why. And I didn't know how to change it. And it was just this crushing anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of a sudden right now, and this, I now can, for me, relate to what noise and silence is, if this is almost like a nightmarish scene. But as part of a bigger picture of waking life, I'm going to try to suggest that each of these scenes is almost like an expression of what's already come in the movie if you're paying attention. So the movie's already talked about this in its own way, and then it's showing you an episode of it in the dream. It's really interesting because I came across another scene at the end of the movie, and what happened at that part is actually mentioned earlier as an idea. So
Okay.
this idea was brought up in some discussion before, and then we see it in a dream later on. And if you only watch the movie one time, you're not going to catch it. You know, it's just not going to be there for you. But so yeah, I think that you're right. This cultural expression, this man here is the embodiment of a cultural identity that's running away from the past, and it's looking for his own voice to express who, you know, his own existential crisis. I mean, I'll just play it again because, like I don't know, man. I have felt such a deep connection with this movie that it's almost like the Bible. When people say, you know, I just read the Bible all the time, and it just shows me new things, and that's what it's like for me when I watch this. Like I see,
So the whole thing is like a jigsaw puzzle. It's sort of fitting
yeah,
into place. Yeah.
yeah, and it only comes with you keep trying to put the puzzle piece together. But I'm going to play it again because again it breaks it down a bit. I'll stop it along the way.
Doubt became our narrative. Ours was a quest for a new story.
Okay, so ours was a quest for a new story. Doubt became our narrative, and then he said this whole thing began with doubt. So you come to a point where you look at what you were taught, you look at what you were told. This is the way life is, and then something in your own experience, you're like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. There's got to be a different story out there.
Yeah.
Or I've got to find my place in the story that my parents found their place. But my parents is like you said in our discussion before with your parents, and then how your kids, you know, experience you.
Yeah. What was that? Yeah. The idea that my mum and dad were born in 1938, and to me, that's so remote. I can't imagine life before me, and yet they existed. And I was born in 1960, and everything's in color. But when I think about my mum and dad, it's sort of through a black and white movie. There's no color, there's no smells, there's no experience of it. And then I'm thinking that my own kids now must be thinking, well, Dad he's really old. He was born in 1960. That is so remote from their personal experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, we're not related, obviously, but you've got a 12-year gap between your birth and mine, you know, so, you know, I don't consider you older than I am per se, other than the dates, you know what I mean? But in terms of our being able to relate to each other, I think that decade is still, you know, a pretty small, pretty small gap.
10 years at our age means nothing. It's when you're at school and you're maybe in the first form, age 7, and you're looking at the older kids, age 12, and you think, well, wow, they are old.
I remember, I even remembered having that thought when I was in secondary school, and the 8th graders who were like 13 years old. I mean, 13, man. I remember thinking as an 11-year-old, man, they're so old. They're so mature or big. You know, like there were certain characters in that school that had this, you know, they were taller, or maybe they were hulkier, or whatever it was, but they were adults in my mind, and they were just 2 years older than I was.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to this, so they are looking for their ability to find their voice,
Our own. And we grasped toward this new history driven by the suspicion that ordinary language couldn't tell it.
Okay, so now ordinary language couldn't tell it, and then it switches to this scene, because this is a language here, music, right? And each generation has its own, you know, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Buddy Holly, Elvis, Ella Fitzgerald, you know, whatever. You have those voices, but this voice here is chaos, or at least it's ordered chaos. You know, anarchy.
Our past appeared frozen in the distance.
Our past appeared frozen in the distance. What do you think that means? Our past appeared frozen in the distance.
It's gone. It's of no relevance anymore. It's
It's a picture on the wall.
Yeah, that's right. Or a photograph,
Uh-huh.
or somebody trying to explain how they enjoyed Buddy Holly.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Hold on. Have I talked to you about my grandparents' home?
No, you haven't. No.
Okay.
Sorry, just the big events of say the Summer of Love. It was in 1969, and what was that big concert called? Woodstock. To you and me, that's it doesn't relate to us other than we're looking at it in history, and yet it was such a significant thing for the people who lived and experienced that.
Yeah, I was watching a movie with my son, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Have you seen that? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
No.
So it's set back in the early 70s, like a 72 or 73. And then they were referring to, Nixon and the 60s and the war. And yeah, I had kind of a conversation like that with Harry. Like, that is so far away from here and now. Like, we don't really see the rallies of the peace rallies anymore. We don't really see those.
Ban the bomb.
Yeah, or whatever. Like that's gone. That era is gone.
Yeah.
But anyway, just real quick, my grandparents, I grew up going to my grandparents' home up in the foothills in California, and that's like the quintessential experience for me as a child. I loved going there. I loved my grandparents, Christmas and the holidays, loved it all. Well, this photograph is nearly 40 years old. It's not going to be, I don't think I can make it very clear, but I'm just showing it just for the sake of showing it.
Right. There's too much reflective light on it. Oh yes, yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Okay. So this is a picture looking down on the home, and this is 40 years ago, right? And now that home is gone in terms of it no longer belongs to our family, And so that picture now is just on the wall, and that's in the past. It's like,
yeah.
But I used to be there. I used to walk right there, And a few years ago, that's where I was doing a lot of my sky watching and recording when I came across some interesting stuff with the stars. But anyway, okay, so we're talking about our past being frozen and something that's no longer, I guess, relevant per se in terms of experience. It is relevant because it was a part of making us who we are, I think.
And our every gesture and accent signified the negation of the old world. And
I wanted to get back right there where he was flipping off. There he goes. So they're saying F you to the establishment. They're talking about. I mean, what did they talk about? I never got into the punk scene. So what were they? What was their beef?
Well, I personally experienced this. The punk scene happened in 76, 77, and that I was 16, 17 at the time. Up to that point, we had very technical music, prog rock like Genesis, Pink Floyd. To be anything in the music industry, you'd have had to have gone to Oxford or Cambridge to study music. All those brilliant bands came out of that sort of era going through university. I was bored stiff with it. And then just briefly we had the Saturday Night Fever disco era, which was awful. The Bee Gees, I hated the Bee Gees. And then out of nowhere came the punk scene, and it was so refreshing. It was kids that hadn't been to music school. They could hardly play a chord. They were angry. Obviously there was something in the background controlling it. Like Malcolm McLaren wasn't stupid, but we had the Sex Pistols.
Who's that?
He was the manager of the Sex Pistols.
Okay.
And then we had like the Clash and the Damned, the Jam, Stranglers, Elvis Costello, and it was so refreshing, and I loved that era.
Was punk primarily a UK expression? And then it bled out everywhere else, or where was it? It was London and New York. You had Blondie and
Oh, come on, you're gonna have to help me here. Who else was there?
Yeah, but weren't they more new wave? They were more new wave. Were they? Punk?
Yeah, well, it was just only a few months after,
Yeah.
really. The Ramones as well. Were they a New York band? Were they?
It's possible. It's possible. Have you seen the movie CBGB?
No, I haven't. No.
You would love that movie. Do you know what the CBGB was?
No.
Oh my God. You have to, I think it's free on YouTube right now. So I'll try to send you a link. I'll try to find it for you and send you a link. But basically, it was this music store, or no, a bar. It was a bar that had a stage, and the owner of the bar would let anybody come in and play. And so this became the place for Blondie, the Ramones, the Talking Heads. They all started at the CBGB.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, like what was the Talking Heads song, Wartime, Life in Wartime? I think that's the song, Life in Wartime. It says, this ain't no CBGB. So he throws a little callback. He throws a little callback to that place, but it's a fan.
Chrissy Hine as well would have been at that from the Pretenders. That sort of era.
I tell you what, though, man, the minute the scene comes on with the Talking Heads when they take the stage, and you got Tina Weymouth going dum 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 dum, I just my whole body just electrified. It was amazing. I wasn't ready for it, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoy that movie as well. But yeah, yeah.
All of what we're reminiscing now, the kids today, it'll be just as remote as Buddy Holly would have been to you and me.
I know that. Isn't that so weird, the way that time frame? I was trying to talk about that last time we were together, about how time for me is like that. It's like, man, Buddy Holly, like that's like this for me, and that's like this for them now. Because now you think about Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam's 30 years ago.
I know.
And so those guys with the new punks.
Yeah.
I mean, is there punk music right now? Who's in, like, that's like Third Eye Blind? They're gone, or whatever. I can't even think of anything that would be significant today. But I think the biggest thing that I've seen today is like Tom McDonald. He's a big white hip hop artist from Canada. Yeah. And he's making a scene on YouTube, and he's like a punk. Have you seen Tom McDonald? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Who?
Tom McDonald.
No, I don't know Tom McDonald. No.
All right, I'll have to send you a thing on him too. Basically, he's making a name for himself. He's got over 1 million followers. I'm pretty sure he's up into the millions, and he's just doing independent releases. He's just making his own music. He in the past few months, I don't know what he almost releases a song every Friday, but a couple of months ago, the 2 songs that he released consecutively both took #1 on all the charts without a label, nothing. He just killed it.
Did you come across that guy with his guitar in the woods singing? Is it the rich man from Richmond County?
Yeah, like him. Yeah, it's kind of like him, but that guy's country. This guy that I'm talking about is more hip hop.
Right. Okay.
Even though he did a country song mashup, so he and another country artist did a song, and it was a really good song that I actually shared a number of times when I did Uber, when I was having conversations with people. And it happened to just be when that song came out, and I was like, have you heard this song? And we would listen to it, and the writers were impressed with the content of it. They're like, wow, that's a really good song. They had never heard of the artist and whatnot, but
yeah.
Okay, so here we go.
And the reach for a new one. The way we lived created a new situation, one of exuberance and friendship, that of a subversive micro-society in the heart of a society which ignored it. Art was not the goal, but the occasion and the method for locating our specific rhythm and varied possibilities of our time.
Hang on, so art was not the goal, it was the method.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is just for the audience. This is the dreamer here. He's the main character. This is the dreamer. Yeah, go ahead with what you're saying, because I was going
to. So music, art, as well as sort of visual art, like paintings and imagery. So they all go together, don't they? what am I trying to say? There's a young. I teach chess to children. There's a young fella who made me a Christmas card. He's only
Oh, yeah?
He's only aged about 11,
Oh, man, that's awesome, man.
and he made this Christmas card for me. And Matisse would sort of cut shapes and then plaster them on the on a canvas.
Yeah.
Well, this young fella had cut pieces out to make a chessboard and chess pieces, and it was just like a Matisse. I thought I was really touched by what he did.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to find it. It's not in this room anyway. But that was a Matisse. I mean, what was his art about? It was very childlike.
So is Matisse the name of an artist, and it's named after his style?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he would just cut shapes. If you do I'll send you links, but a researcher on Matisse, and it's very simple in that he would like cut shapes out of a colored piece of paper, and just paste it onto another different colored piece of paper. And if you had a Matisse now, it'd be worth millions. It's very childlike and simple. I suppose again, like punk was like a response to the ultra technical music of prog rock. That every now and again, art has to have a reset of something that sort of it almost makes fun at the previous art.
But see, isn't that the tension too? Because that became the segue from the early 70s, the late 60s with Floyd. I'm trying to think, was Floyd given the trying to remember. I watched so many reaction channels that love prog rock, and I was trying to remember who they thought was the very first band. But there's Emerson, Lake and Palmer. There's Yes, and like you mentioned, Genesis and Pink Floyd and others, Hocus Pocus, and then when the 80s came on, the only Yes that I knew as a 12-year-old was Owner of a Lonely Heart,
And
which was
very pop and commercial.
Which was pop.
Yeah.
Right. So then you even have, it's like what I think I'd mentioned to you when we were first talking about this, when Rage Against the Machine, right? Rage Against the Machine in the 90s, just F you to this. Fuck you. I won't do what you tell me. And then just 2 years ago, they're like, fuck you guys. You can't come to our concert unless you get the jab.
Yeah.
And it's the complete turnaround. So then you have these guys that were these paramount gods of progressive rock, and then they had to capitulate. I mean, or did they just see it as a way of like, hey, you know what? We've got to just go with the flow and just make these changes, right? Because I've heard a lot of people say, look, I appreciate the technicality of the progressive rock, but if you want to make millions of dollars, you got to make bubblegum pop.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to just do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I when I was a kid and I was ignoring the progressive rock, I was into people like Bob Marley and also George Benson, a fantastic jazz guitarist.
Benson's amazing, yeah.
But you wouldn't know that if all you knew was his disco era. He cashed in at that point.
Yeah.
But prior to that,
I think that's okay. I think that's okay, man. It's like
well, you know the story of Judas with Bob Dylan?
No.
Bob Dylan was acoustic folk music. And then he went on tour and he came to Manchester and he came on with an electronic band where the audience was expecting an acoustic guitar and that sort of raw country folk that he did. And somebody shouted from the audience, Judas! And it's a highlight, but it's too young for you. So it's too old for you.
Yeah.
He'd bitten the popular group and went electric rather than acoustic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a fine line between the progression of time and culture, right? Prog rock is progressive rock. When I first heard that term, I always thought, this is from Poland? I mean, because I didn't know what the abbreviation was. I just heard Prague, and the only Prague I knew was Prague.
Mhm.
It was a capital. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I had no context for that terminology, and I had no idea. I don't know if I told you this either, but I didn't know that Peter Gabriel was the lead singer for Genesis until like 3 years ago.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was blown away, and you know, I mean, because I maybe had heard some of their progressive stuff when Peter Gabriel was there, but again, my experience of Genesis was Phil Collins.
Yeah.
So that's all. So check this out. Peter Gabriel comes on the scene. Dan Hartman comes on the scene. Steve Winwood comes on the scene. All these guys come on the scenes as solo artists, and I think they're brand new.
Oh, right. Right.
I
Okay.
had no
Yeah.
idea who these people were as a kid. You know what I mean?
Well, you have an album behind you, Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah.
Now he broke away from a mainstream group. I can't remember which one he was.
Oh yeah, I remember. Well, hold on. Yeah.
And he made a single album.
Yeah, that's right. Wasn't he young like Steve Winwood? Steve Winwood was like 14 when he was in Traffic, wasn't he?
I don't know.
I think he was like 14 or 15 years old. He was crazy prodigious. He was a prodigy.
Yeah, and then you have those two bands, Fleetwood Mac and Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, what was it, Bob Green? Bob Green?
No, just Fleetwood Mac in the 1960s was an entirely different group.
Oh, no, I know. That's what I'm saying, though. But Bob Green, or one of the guys that was the main impetus behind that version of Fleetwood Mac, is no longer. He left the band, and when that happened, you bring in Nix and Buckingham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but however, the movie the album Mystery to Me, I love that album. I don't know if you know that Fleetwood Mac album, but Mystery to Me is, I think, well, not one of my. Rumors is amazing. So Rumors is probably my top.
No, it's not. It's boring. That was there. Yeah, that was me. But Peter Green of the 1960s.
Peter Green. That's who I was thinking of. Peter Green.
Yeah.
Anyway, that album, and I have that album, but it's not on my wall. It's in California in storage. Has a song on it that is, I think I would say, if anybody said, "Hey, Travis, what's your favorite song?" It would have to be Hypnotized by Fleetwood Mac.
Okay.
Hypnotized. Have you heard it? Yeah. To me, I love that song. That song is amazing. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about something, and now I can't remember what it was. I mean, in terms of this part of the part of the.
Okay, we'll carry on then. We got.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Let me back up a little bit so we can hear a little bit of the context.
Art was not the goal, but the occasion and a method for locating our specific rhythm and varied possibilities of our time. The discovery of a true communication was what it was about, or at least the quest for such.
Okay, now here's a tie back to one of the earlier scenes about communication. So I think it was probably 1, 2, 3. The third major scene in the dreamscape is a woman talking to the dreamer, and she's talking about words and the way that we use words. We use words to describe a fox. She didn't say it this way, but we have the word fox. It means something, but we use it in other contexts so that it doesn't mean fox. It means something else. And so she's saying that's not a very healthy way to have language, because you have these concrete ideas that you use a word for, and then you have these abstract ideas like love and anger. Like, what is that? Mm-hmm. And if I say love to you, if I say fox, you think of a fox. Yeah. But if I say love, what's your impression of love? Well,
you're the classical Greek scholar. There would be eros, storge, philia. It's different flavors of love, isn't it? Like there's the love that you have for your brother is different than the romantic love you have for your partner.
Sure, but in our watered down milk toast, and I do tend to think that English is a contrived, created language. I think that it actually was created entirely to cast spells on the way that we think. And I don't mean cast spells like Harry Potter. Harry Potter is an allegory. just like Matrix is an allegory. Don't pay attention to the details. They're talking about something completely different than you think. But, English, we just have the word love, and then we have to qualify it with this and that and this and that and this and that. But like you brought up in terms of with Greek, you've got at least 4 different kinds of flavors, and they have different words. If I want to talk about this, I'm going to use this word. I'm not just going to say love, because love doesn't really have any substance to it.
Yeah.
And it depends on your experience. Like, you could have been abused as your parents couldn't have loved you, or might not have loved you, or this person or whatever. So then you don't believe in love. And don't you ever say love in my, like, oh, hey man, just chill out. I'm just talking, so it was interesting. But anyway, my point is that this movie, in my opinion, is very well crafted, because you have these repeating themes that either echo each other or maybe develop the thought that started earlier in another scene, if that makes any sense.
Okay, and
we switched from the color to dark
to black and white. Yeah.
Let me go back here, because I think there might be something here that I was gonna.
In the heart of a society which ignored it.
So yeah, in the heart of a society which ignored it. So you have a macrocosm of society, and then you have this microcosm of these people going, hey, pay attention to me. We want to be loved too. Right? Because isn't that all the punks want? Like, you just, look, man. Look, Sid, you just need a hug, bro. You just want a hug. You just want to be loved. That's all he wanted. Right? Just listen to what I'm saying. Right? I mean, that's not a physical hug, but if you listen to somebody, which is the thing that that woman ended with. She says, when we talk to each other and I listen to you and you feel like I've heard you, there's a spiritual connection there. That's like a dopamine rush. Like, oh, he's listening. She's listening to me. She understands, or whatever,
Art was not the goal, but the occasion and the method for locating our specific rhythm and varied possibilities of our time. The discovery of a true communication was what it was about, or at least.
Okay, so the discovery of a true communication was what it was about, and then we switched to this black and white.
It's the quest for such a communication, the adventure of finding it and losing it. We, the unappeased, the unaccepting, continued looking, filling in the silences with our own wishes, fears, and fantasies, driven forward by the fact that no matter how empty the world seemed, no matter how degraded and used up the world appeared to us, we knew that anything was still possible, and, given the right circumstances, a new world was just as likely as an old one.
So nobody's prepared to accept the conditions that they're in, or that whatever circumstances that they are in. They still believe that there's something better.
Yeah, sure. But isn't that also then the whole thing with, like, say, for instance, if with parents or with a master and an apprentice, that you would hope that they would surpass you? I mean, I remember having that understanding for myself in my role as a parent. I would like to think that of all of mistakes that I made, I would like to think that the majority of my parenting was positive, that the percentage was higher than the negative. And one of the things that even my oldest son will mention every once in a while, he says this, but I said this to him when he was very, very small, and I was trying to train him to be a better person. And I said something to the extent of, the reason why I'm doing this right now with you, the reason why I'm teaching you what I'm teaching you right now, or disciplining you or training you in this way, is because I want you to be better than I was. So that when you're my age, I've already prepared you to be changed by that time, so that you can be better or more advanced than I was, so that you can then do the same thing for your child. So that by the time we get to your child, and your child is now 26, he's better than the both of us were, because we've made those changes. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and better opportunities as well. That I didn't go to university, but my goal was to get my kids to go to university.
Yeah.
I didn't have the same opportunities, different circumstances.
It would be interesting to find out, because this movie was made in 2001, and I don't know what year the movie Closing Time came out. Do I have my glasses? I can look it up real quick. Closing Time by Three Doors Down, I think. Was it Three Doors Down? Anyway, the refrain in their song is every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
And that's what the closing remarks that is.
Yeah, that's what I was reminded of. So let's look up Closing Time. Oops. Closing Time. Oh, Semisonic. Yeah, let's see what year. This is 98. So 98. There you go. Mm-hmm. So very well, I was just wondering which came first. But yeah, when I heard that lyric as a 26-year-old, every new beginning comes like, that's really profound, that's, but yeah, it's really interesting to think about my experience with all that stuff in the 90s and the music that impressed me back then. I was a young Christian in the 90s, and in the early 90s when the grunge movement started, Man in a Box by Alice in Chains.
I was away from music at that time. I had a very young family.
Okay. I didn't like it because I was a conservative Christian, and it wasn't like honoring to God and this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. But man, when that song resonated with me and clicked, I was like, fuck, man, this music is amazing. The lyrics, the angriness of the the distortion and whatnot. So there were a lot of songs that I felt for me, that I could relate to. It's so interesting because they're different stories. Your story is different, but you're writing about my experience. So I had a lot of those in the 90s, and that was an enjoyable time too. And I wasn't a concert goer. If I could go back, one of the things, if I could have a time machine, I would go back and see as many concerts as I could. I mean, I would go broke. Like I would do whatever I could and go to concerts.
Well, I got a call from a friend of mine when I was about 18, and he says, I've got a ticket to see Genesis. Will you come with us? And I said no, because it just didn't do anything for me. And he couldn't believe it either.
Oh, wow. I mean, listen, I appreciate you living by your principles, but oh my God. Wow. You don't even like Abacab?
No, I do now, but at the time,
because that stuff is an later version. That's like the Twilight Zone. I think Abacab is like the Twilight Zone before they got, they were leaving Prague in the 70s. Here's the 80s. Yeah. Abacab was right there in the opinion.
No, for me at that time, music was very pigeonholed. It was reggae and nothing else, or it was jazz rock and nothing else.
Did you like Steely Dan?
Not really, not particularly.
Really, you didn't like that version of jazz?
Well, I wasn't exposed to it. Put it that way.
Okay.
I mean, who's the Loan Me a Dime? Who was that band?
Loan Me a Dime?
Yeah.
Is that a song?
Clearance Clearwater Revival. I never appreciated them until later on in the
okay.
In life. I mean, what a fantastic band, but at the time, didn't do nothing for me.
Okay. Yeah. I remember one of my earliest memories too with my divorced family. So my dad's second wife, I think she had.
Sorry, that was Boss Gags, by the way. Loan Me a Dime.
Boss Gags. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I only know his popular stuff. I don't know any of his B-sides that were songs that nobody would have known unless you bought the album. Excuse me, I've got this burp coming in. It won't come up, but pardon me. Now I forgot what I was saying. I have a hiccup.
Anyway, back to the film. We've got there To Begin Again from the Beginning. It doesn't appear in the film in that order, in that sequence.
Right. Yeah. So then
random, isn't it?
Yeah, let me go back and let's go back. So we've got beginning again, and this is my impression again. when an artist does something, it's very significant. So he's telling it in this way. There's a reason why he's doing it this way. Beginning again from begin the two. Yeah. I just that part that just dislocates it with that poor grammar throws it off for me. That's almost like punk music. That like that triggers my grammar Nazi. You know what I mean? So that I'd be like some classical teacher going, "That's not the way you play a scale," or whatever, you know. But yeah. Okay. All right, so we got 45 minutes of content. That's an amazing amount, and I've enjoyed this conversation. So I'm hoping that this kind of conversation is going to resonate with people. It would be interesting if I just threw it up on a channel and see what happens just with this episode. I think that would be an interesting experiment, so to speak. But then I'd have to have an independent variable, and that wouldn't make Tony very happy. Sleeping Warrior would be getting all over me for not having an independent variable to wiggle.
Well, let's Waking Life. I wouldn't have been aware of this unless you'd pointed it out to me. The very first dream that he has, well, it's not. It's probably the second dream that he has. Is he gets a taxi, but the taxi is actually a boat, and he listens to the narration of the sailor come chauffeur of that boat car.
Yeah.
So we'll do that next time. We'll have a look.
Yeah, that one.
Or maybe we need to start when he's holding the car handle and he's floating upwards.
Well, like I said, if I can get this file to be useful this way, then we'll just start from the very first episode and go from there. But it didn't work out today to do that. Was I going to say something else? Oh, I'm going to cut this part out, but so I was talking to you about, what I was going to think about for the channel title and whatever, but I think I'm just going to stick with my name, and then just have playlists. That are going to, that we can maybe I'll call our sessions something like one bourbon, one scotch, one beer, because we've done that before. And that's kind of like a throwback to what you and I've done in the past. So I might just have these sessions, be one bourbon, one scotch, one beer. And then we're talking about this and then other things that come up and whatnot. So, go ahead.
I tried to watch all of it, but it was 2 hours. You sent me a link on astrotheology. Very interesting.
Yeah. I'm actually going more and more into that. Like, it's almost like this net. Like I've asked so many different content creators who are talking about astrotheology. I'm like, prove this. Like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't see you justifying anything. And for me right now, I don't think there is any justification for it because there's just too much similarity. You've got Jesus having 12 disciples. You've got the 12 tribes of Israel. You've got all of these
Bethlehem,
connections.
House of bread.
It's just
See, that started me questioning things as well. The twins of Rome. You got Romulus and Remus and Romulus. Then you have the twin.
Gemini?
The Gemini twins, but there's also an ancient story in Irish mythology of twins that fought. And then you had in the Bible, you've got Jacob and Esau, two twins that fought.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So is it just that twins were a fascination, or is there one central original story of twins that fought?
That's a great question, but the more pertinent question to me is, why is the zodiac a circle or a wheel of animals and people? Because when you look up at those stars, they don't look like what they are called.
No, there's nothing like it.
So I want to decode that. I want to find out why right? If you think about what you just said in terms of the Irish story, the ancient Near East story, the North American story, the South. Like we have all of these different cultures. Do you know what, at least in relative terms, do you know what the one television show they had to watch every single night?
The Sky.
The Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe The Sky came afterwards. The story of the fighting twins.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah,
But
came first, and then that pattern of stars
all right.
reminds us of it. Not necessarily. It's not a doctor.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it has to be a chicken before the egg kind of a thing. Which of these came first?
Yeah,
because I don't think. Yeah, I don't think the stars came first, and then you started trying to tell things like you had experiences here.
Yeah.
And then you start. It's like what else do you have to do in ancient times except for like, okay, who's got a story tonight?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean the only dotted up of the stars that works for me is Orion and his belt.
Even that,
you can see his sword and his bow, and again, it's a bit vague.
But think about this too, though, Mark. In order for you to say anything about the sky and the stars, because that's when you can see them, is at night. Like you would have to stay up all night and watch the sky.
Yeah.
Like, because you're watching the episode, you don't want to miss something that happens. Like something could happen, you know? And so just think about, at least I do. I think about often how long this science would have taken to develop, especially across continents.
The Babylonians seem to have got it right. But then they must have been depending on generations of observation as well and just passing it on to the next.
Well, see, the beautiful thing about that is that because it's a story, because it's not real, it can change.
Mm-hmm.
It can develop. You know, you can nip and tuck, you can, whatever. Like if you were to tell somebody the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears or whatever, maybe something more akin to your culture in Ireland and whatnot, or England, there might be a folk tale or whatever. You could tell that folk tale and leave certain details out that are not necessary, but you're still telling the heart of that story, And so this is the thing for me with organized religion. Christianity is fucking line up or you're going to get shot. Because if you don't believe this, you're going to hell. But that's not the spiritual dimension of all of these cultures. Like if you were to go on a trip with your tribe or whatever, and you're going to say, hey, you know what? I heard that there's another tribe like a few moons away, a few months away, right? We're going to have to walk for a few months. And then we're going to find this culture and we're going to sit down and listen to their stories. There's no competition. There's like, what do you have? I want to know. What do you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, the ancient Celts didn't write down their story. They had the bard who spread their story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But my point is that they were open to listening to stories.
Yeah. What have you got to tell me?
And they're not going to go, oh, that didn't really happen. That's impossible. Like, you know what? Can somebody get this guy out of here because he's ruining the vibe?
Yeah.
You got some literal. Are you saying that happened literally? Like, who invited this guy?
Yeah. Did you say you got family coming over tonight or today?
Yeah. So Fridays. Today is Friday, and so my son has two children now. He has a 3-year-old boy and a 7-month-old boy, and so we're going to take them to go see a train garden.
All right. Okay.
So we did that with my son, and he said, "Dad, I want to do that with my kids." So we're going to go.
What is it like? Steam engine type trains?
I'm sorry.
Steam engine locomotives.
No. It's a model. It's a very, very large model set with different sections with different themes. They have, different cultural characters, Pokemon, Homer, all these different Spider-Man, and you can see, whatever. So it's just this, it's enjoyable. It's in a mall, it's Christmas time. So we're going to go do that as soon as I end this with you. So, well, good. I'm happy with what we've done, and it looks like we're still recording. So hopefully we're not going to lose this one. And,
trim it down to something like 15 minutes if you can.
Yeah. Well, see, the way that the channels do it is they do that. They trim it down, and then they make it available on the large scale. If you want to watch it, then you have to pay.
Yeah.
You can
Okay,
watch
well-
you can watch the short version for free, but if you want to see everything, because man, Mark said something amazing that I didn't
No, we
put
didn't.
that I didn't put in the edited form. And if you want to see what Mark said, you got to pay up. So we'll see how this works.
All right.
Um,
Well, listen, if I don't speak to you before New Year, have a great holiday.
yeah. You too, brother.
Midwinter Festival.
Yep.
Okay. God bless, Albie.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.